Welcome to Hood Politics. In this episode, I will be discussing a string of incidents involving the Varrio Grape gang and the Fudge Mafia Crips. The facts of the case are as follows. Watts is a neighborhood located on the east side of South Los Angeles, just north of the city of Compton. Watts is home to the famous Watts Towers, which have become well known in pop culture, but Watts is also home to some of the most vicious gangs in Los Angeles. The South Side Watts Varrio Grape gang and the East Side Grape Street Watts Crip gang are longtime allies. The two gangs were once one gang called Watts Varrio Grape, but during the creation of the Serrano Alliance, many of the Latino members separated and formed Southside Watts Varrio Grape 13, and many of the black members went on to form the East Side Grape Street Watts Crips. But even after the split, the gangs have remained close. You can even find many of the original Grape Street Crips with Watts Varrio Grape tattoos. The two gangs share the same territory and share some of the same enemies. One of their most hated enemies are the Fudge Mafia Crips. Fudge formed in the 1970s and wear brown as their primary color. Fudge claims an area directly south of Grape territory. Watts Varrio Grape and Fudge territories overlap, which has led to numerous shootings and multiple murders. In one incident on January 17, 2008, at around 4 p.m., a woman named Luz Gutierrez picked up her boyfriend, Artie Pullum, from work. Pullum, also known as Limp, was a beloved member of Fudge Town. Gutierrez, her 3-month-old daughter, and her 14-year-old niece Rico were also in the car. On the way home, they stopped at the liquor store and Pullum brought a bottle of beer. Pullum asked Gutierrez to stop at the corner of 107th and Grape Street so he could talk to some friends. One of the friends at the corner was another Fudge Town member nicknamed DC. A few moments later, a Watts Varrio Grape member named Gilbert Sanchez arrived on a bike and attempted to talk to Pullum. Pullum became aggressive towards Gilbert. Gilbert left and Pullum continued talking to his group of friends. Gilbert went and told other Watts Varrio Grape members about the incident. Among the group was Gilbert's brother Derek Deadman and Gilbert's cousins, Richard Sanchez and Leonard Rocha. The group went to the corner of 107th and Grape Street to confront Pullum. Gutierrez knew Leonard and Richard recognized DC as a member of Fudge Town. Pullum began screaming at the group. He took off his shirt and began challenging people to fight. Leonard slowly moved towards Pullum, pulled out a gun, and opened fire, hitting Pullum multiple times, including multiple shots to his head. Pullum's body spun and fell to the ground. The two groups immediately dispersed and fled the scene. Detectives arrived on the scene and began their investigation. Initially, no one was willing to talk to investigators, but Gutierrez and her niece Rico later decided to cooperate. Gutierrez said she was reluctant to talk because she wanted Fudge Town members to kill Leonard, but she had a change of heart because she didn't want Leonard's blood on her hands. Richard was also reluctant to cooperate, but after talking to his mother, he told investigators that he was at the scene of the shooting, along with Gilbert, Derek, and Leonard. Leonard Rocha was arrested and charged with the murder of Artie Pullum. The medical examiner found that Pullum was shot 4 times, in his back and in the back of his head. Toxicology results showed that Pullum had a 0.19 blood alcohol level at the time of his death. During the trial, Gutierrez and Rico testified against Leonard. A Los Angeles police officer named Salvador Cervantes testified as the gang expert. He was assigned to the Watts Varrio Grape Street gang. Cervantes testified that Leonard openly admitted his gang affiliation during police encounters, and when he was arrested, he was wearing a purple Washington Nationals hat, a purple shirt, and purple tennis shoes. Leonard also had a W tattoo for Watts, as well as a tattoo of a figure wearing a purple bandana. Cervantes went on to testify that purple is a color worn by Watts Varrio Grape and Grape Street Crip members because purple is the color of grapes. The prosecutor also presented a photo of Leonard throwing up the letter G, which is a sign used by Grape Street members. Cervantes went on to say that the shooting was done to benefit the Watts Varrio Grape gang. The opinion was based on the fact that Gilbert left a confrontation with Pullum and returned with 3 fellow gang members. The group was armed and had to retaliate for the perceived disrespect in order to defend their name. The shooting was also an opportunity for Leonard to elevate his status within the gang. The defense attorney said the shooting was committed in self-defense. Leonard testified that Pullum was acting erratically and he feared Pullum might have had a weapon. The prosecution denied the self-defense claim. The prosecutor said Pullum did remove his shirt and challenge anyone in the group to a fist fight, but there wasn't a struggle or any type of scuffle, and no one else believed Pullum had a weapon. The prosecutor went on to say that Leonard made the choice to go to the corner of 107th and Grape Street armed, and when they were challenged, Leonard had the option to leave, but chose not to. Ultimately, Leonard Rocha was found guilty with the murder of Artie Pullum. Leonard Rocha was sentenced to 50 years to life in prison. A lot of people say that the death of Pullum is what started the war, but the war intensified after a Fudge Town member was stabbed by a Varrio Grape member in 2011. Investigators believe that Fudge Town is responsible for the March 28, 2011 murder of Jose Cardona, as well as the June 18, 2011 murder of Emmanuel Berry. In another incident on October 11, 2011, at around 8:50 a.m., a man named Oscar Arevalo was standing on the corner of 106th Street and Wilmington Avenue. Arevalo, also known as Knuckles, was a beloved member of Varrio Grape. As Arevalo stood on the sidewalk, he was approached by two men. The two men opened fire from a Beretta and a Glock. Arevalo fell into the street as the shooter stood over him and continued to fire. Arevalo was shot a total of 21 times, including 15 shots to his head and his face. Detectives arrested two Fudge Town members, Jamal King, also known as Badass, and Melvin Lemon, also known as Baby Neffy, and charged them with Arevalo's murder. King and Lemon were later found guilty and received lengthy prison sentences. Investigators suspect that Arevalo's murder was in retaliation for the murder of a Fudge Town member named Reginald McDaniel, also known as Chuck Wayne. McDaniel was driving near the intersection of 105th and Grape Street when he was shot by someone standing on the sidewalk. McDaniel's car slammed into a tree and he was pronounced dead at the scene. The war between Fudge Town and Varrio Grape has claimed many lives, but one incident will make headlines. On June 4th, 2012, a 21-year-old man named Mauro Cortez was holding his 14-month-old son Angel while talking to some friends and family members at a home on Hickory Street. One of Mauro's friends showed up with purple t-shirts that had Honda signs on them. The shirts also read, "I have a Honda, be nice to me." Mauro drove a Honda and liked the shirts, so he took one and put one on. As Mauro and the others began to congregate outside, Mauro's stepfather and stepbrothers urged him to take the shirt off due to it being a gang color. Mauro was an immigrant from rural Mexico and didn't know anything about the gang politics in Watts. At around 7:50 p.m., Mauro and the rest of the group were standing in front of the house talking. Mauro was holding Angel while still wearing the purple t-shirt. Someone wearing a dark colored hoodie rolled up to the group on a bicycle. The person pulled out a revolver from their hoodie pocket and began to open fire into the crowd. The group ran for cover, and when the shooting stopped, one of the men in the group saw the suspect pedal south on Hickory Street and make a left on 107th Street. During the shooting, Mauro was in shock and stayed where he was, with Angel in his arms. When the shooting stopped, Mauro looked at Angel and saw that he had been hit. Angel wasn't crying and his eyes were still open. Mauro then felt a cold sensation and realized that he himself was also shot in the shoulder. Mauro then gave Angel to a woman at the scene. The woman was reported saying that Angel was trying to cry but couldn't and was turning pale. She also said that she could see the inside of his stomach. Another woman came and performed CPR on Angel and he began breathing again. The woman then gave Angel to paramedics. Angel's mom, Liliana Nava, was also present during the incident and threw herself to the ground when the shooting started. When the shooting stopped, she looked around and saw Mauro giving the baby to the other woman. Liliana saw that the woman had blood on her, but soon after, she realized it was Angel's blood. Liliana called the police and rode to the hospital with Angel in the ambulance. Hours later, Angel was pronounced dead. He died of 2 gunshot wounds, both of which were fatal. Detectives arrived at the scene and began their investigation. Witnesses gave vague descriptions about the shooter, but said it was a young black man. They discovered no bullet casings and figured the gun was most likely a revolver. Investigators recovered a spent bullet from the scene and found bullet impacts on a parked vehicle in the driveway and on a nearby canopy. After the shooting, the city of Los Angeles offered a $50,000 reward for information leading to the killer's arrest. Timothy Lewicki, who was then president of AGE, later offered an additional $50,000. Investigators received information that led them to a potential suspect, a 15-year-old young man named Donald Ray Dawkins. A detective from the gang unit provided investigators with a picture of Dawkins that he had taken during an encounter. The gang unit detective told investigators that Dawkins was a member of the Fudge Town Mafia Crips and went by the nickname Infant Stebo. In the days following the shooting, investigators showed photographic lineups to the witnesses present during the shooting. Many of the witnesses identified Dawkins as the gunman, although some of the witnesses were unsure. Nearby residents that witnessed Dawkins leaving the scene after the shooting also gave statements to investigators. Investigators later received a tip about a burned sweatshirt in a vacant house a few blocks away from the scene of the shooting. Detectives found the sweatshirt and took it to the lab for analysis. The analysis later found DNA belonging to Dawkins. Upon looking through Dawkins' social media posts, they found a picture of him in a brown hat with the word Riders on it. Also on the hat was Infant, TFR. TFR meant T-Funk Riders, which is a clique within Fudge Town. Dawkins was arrested on June 27, 2012 and charged as an adult with the murder of Angel Cortez and the attempted murder of Mauro Cortez and given a bail of $3 million. Dawkins later pled not guilty. During the trial, trial, the prosecution painted Dawkins as a cold-blooded killer with no remorse for human life. Morrow, Liliana, and others present during the shooting took the stand against Dawkins. A gang unit detective named Patrick Flaherty also took the stand against Dawkins and detailed running into him on multiple occasions at known gang hangouts, where he openly admitted to being a member of Fudge Town. The gang expert for the case was a homicide investigator assigned to the criminal gang homicide division named Samuel Marullo. Marullo testified knowing many Fudge Town members, including members of the T-Funk Riders. Marullo went on to say that he didn't know Dawkins, but had heard of him and knew that he was the youngest member of the T-Funk Riders. Marullo also stated that in order for someone to become a member of TFR, they had to be a shooter. Marullo stated that Dawkins' nickname was inherited by an older Fudge Town member, simply known as Stebo. Marullo went on to explain Fudge Town's feud with Varrio Grape and stated that the shooting was done in benefit of Fudge Town and Dawkins would gain status within the gang if he killed a rival gang member. The defense claimed that the witnesses to the shooting were unreliable, stating that it was near nighttime when the incident occurred and the shooter was wearing a hat and a hood at the time of the shooting. The defense went on to say that one of the witnesses identified a different person when shown the photographic lineup, and there were other witnesses that said they were unsure which one was the shooter when shown the photographic lineup. The defense said the shooter fired with his left hand, but Dawkins is right-handed. There were also different witnesses' accounts about the shooter's size and the color of the sweatshirt he was wearing. Investigators also never found the weapon or bicycle used in the shooting. The judge in the case, Patrick Connolly, was quoted telling Dawkins, "Why did you do this? Were you fighting an imaginary war? These are not your enemies." Ultimately, Donald Ray Dawkins was found guilty with the murder of Angel Cortez and the attempted murder of Morrow Cortez, as well as gun and gang enhancement charges. Donald Ray Dawkins was sentenced to 90 years to life in prison. These were just a few incidents that have taken place in the war between Watts Varrio Grape and the Fudge Town Mafia Crips. This rivalry has shaken the neighborhood of Watts and has no signs of slowing down. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Please like, comment, and subscribe.